Yeah. Mary Ellen, are you there? Okay, geez. Ah.
Mug.
We are now resumed, and
Recording.
that's it.
Okay, so I'm going to start with announcements, and I get most all of these off of our website. So that's where you want to go. If something piques your interest, go to our website and then you'll get more info. So the Individual Arts Fellowship Grant, there's a link for that. You need to apply by April 1st, but it's a grant supporting emerging, established, and legacy artists through unrestricted grant awards ranging from $5,000 to $50,000. So if you as an artist or someone you know about, definitely go to our website, check that out for the link. Still looking for virtual tutors for children in first, second, and third grades, Fort Bragg Unified School District. Again, there's a link on our website. Couple of creative writing classes, one with Santa Rosa JC. It's one of those writing for older adults, 50 and over. It's ongoing registration. It says come for all or some sessions, and then they have a link. And again, that's the Santa Rosa. And also I have to put a plug in for Mendocino College. Our semester starts on Tuesday, and they are running creative writing class for older adults and regular creative writing. It's going to be online, but again, just check out, you could go to the Mendocino College website and see what classes they offer. And if you needed help with registration, you can call the Coast Campus. And Lisa will help you. WMC member Claire Zwirling is still looking to join or form a poetry group. And so she put her email address on our website.
Catherine, I'm going to interrupt and say that I have been in a group for a while and I should have let you know.
Oh, okay. All right. So Doug, we can take that off.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Good. You found something. So
Yeah.
See, it pays to advertise on the Writers of the Mendocino Coast website. Our rival group, or maybe we'll say our partner group, sort of, even though we're not connected to them, the Mendocino Coast Writers Conference. They're doing some online workshops. I know they've got one up. It's their last one on Saturday, February 6th at noon. And it's called Publishing with Small Presses. So that sounds interesting. And you can go to our website for a link to their website, or you can go straight to the Mendocino Coast Writers Conference website, and then I'm sure you'll find more info. And very exciting, Smatch Up is coming. The signups start February 1st. If you've never been part of Smatch Up, we have 10 starters, 10 finishers, so 10 pairs, and they're paired anonymously. One person starts and it's anonymously passed on to someone else to finish. And all the guidelines are on our website. And again, signups start February 1st. It's a very popular event, so I wouldn't wait to sign up. And it's for fiction or poetry. And so you just have to let me know which. And again, my email is on the website.
What is the prompt?
The prompt is last night, ...
Hey.
What was it?
Okay, so I'm going to remind everyone to please mute until it's your turn to
Catherine?
read.
Excuse, I have an announcement I'd like to make. Windflower here. Can I do that?
Okay,
Yeah, I just wanted to let people know that the Mendocino Theater Company, I know you've seen about 1-minute plays that they look for. In February, I was asked after Ekphraxis to read that poem as a 1-minute poem on their radio slot. And actually my spouse did the music behind it. So that'll be in February. But I wanted to just encourage people that they're not just looking for plays. I mean, there's an openness to also looking at poetry or even a short story that you could read in a minute. So if you're interested in that, just contact Pamela Allen at the theater.
okay, great. Thanks, Windflower. So I just, again, wanted to remind people during readings to please mute unless it's your turn. And you might also, if you've got it in gallery view now, which I always like Zoom and gallery view, you might want to do speaker view so you can actually see somebody read. So then the screen is just the speaker.
The upper right corner has a thing called view.
I don't have it. It doesn't say mute anywhere on
Well,
mine.
Mute is at the bottom. It's usually the bottom left. It's
Bottom
over the
left.
microphone.
Will the person reading still be able to see the group?
No.
No,
I feel like that's important.
well, whatever you
So-
want. So speaker view, gallery view, it's your choice.
So what would it be on a Mac laptop?
Okay, it's
To
going to be
mute.
below the picture of the screen. On the left-hand side, a whole bunch of little icons. It is mute and a microphone picture.
Mute. I don't see it. I'll be very quiet.
Well, that'll,
Okay,
Oh, there, I
otherwise,
see it. I've got it.
okay,
I've
good
got
girl,
it.
yay.
There is also, you can also go to your picture, your little box, and in the upper right-hand corner, if you put your
Right.
cursor, there's 3 dots, and there's also
Yep.
a place that you can mute. It says mute
Okay.
right in the upper right-hand corner of your picture box.
Okay, okay.
Thanks, Mother Bear. And then, so before I turn the meeting over to our MC for our 2021 anthology readings from our book Erosion, I really want to acknowledge our editor for the past 2 years who has worked untiringly, if that's even a word, but there's my adverb. She's just so dedicated and has put in a lot of hard work to make our last 2 issues happen. And so I want to turn it over to Nona Smith, maybe to say a few words, and I want us all to acknowledge Nona.
Well, I totally want to thank everybody here
who submitted anything, because sending your babies out in the world to be judged is, it's hard, it's brave. So thank you, all of you, whether you got included this year or not. I just appreciate your effort and your trust. And I had a fabulous team. I would never have taken this on by myself. I had a fabulous team of support. And because I don't want to be like one of those people who stands up at the Academy Awards and then thanks people and then goes, oh, my time is up and I forgot to thank. So I'm going to read who it is I'm appreciative of. So these are judges, copy editors, proofreaders, and technical staff, all of whom donated their time and skill to this project. And I want to thank Henry Ben Susan, who used to live here, but doesn't anymore, but always helps looking at things. And I want to thank Sharon Bowers and Nadi Bumbo and Kelly Dowse and Erlene Gleiser and Susanna Jensen and Robin Koski and Jean Locke and Barbara McKay and Catherine Marshall and Claire McCarthy and Nancy McClellan and Peter Nash and Natty Osa and Katie Pye, Philip Regan, thank you. Fran Schwartz, thank you. Donald Shepard, thank you. Jocelyn Trigg, thank you. Betty Vernos, thank you. Leslie Walquist, Norma Watkins, Mike Wynn, and Claire Zwirling. And I have some special shout outs. So when you get our anthology, you'll see how beautiful it looks. In just before you even open it, the cover is beautiful, and the cover is by Claire Fortier. So Claire, thank you. And Doug, thank you for all of your support, everything that you do. If it looks good on the outside and the pictures look good on the inside, you can thank Doug. Oh. And thank you for your technical support. And I want to thank Susan Lundgren, who followed me step by step, every part of the way. She was my second pair of eyes. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate you so much. And of course, I want to thank Amy McGee for her patience. She interfaces with our printer, and that's exactly what she's doing right now to make sure that this is the best copy that we can produce. And she's working very hard. So thank you, Amy. And I'm just in debt to you all. So let's get on with the show.
Okay, any other announcements? Okay, I'm going to turn it over to our MC, Donald Shepard. So Donald, okay, good, you unmuted. So I'm going to mute and there we go.
First up is Leslie Walquist with a memoir piece entitled Just Ask Ben.
Thank you. This is a condensed version of the piece that will be in the anthology. I'm driving my 5-year-old grandson, Ben, an hour back to his home. He hasn't visited me since COVID-19 entered our county months ago, and he's bursting to hunt wild huckleberries and pick apples on my property. Because raspberries are his favorite, I hadn't picked them in a week, and he worked steadily through the rows, popping them into his mouth, his fingers and cheeks mottled in shades of purple and red. We agreed to save some of them for making birthday ice cream. It's been a full day. I glance in the rearview mirror, wondering if he'll doze off. It's certainly what I would do if given the chance. But he's bright-eyed as we come across the bridge at Big River Beach. The swimming hole's still there, he comments, on the warm sandy pool that forms under the cliffs this time of year. It's one of our favorite places to spend an afternoon, but with tourists flooding the beaches during COVID-19, we've stayed away. I miss going there with you, buddy. I should build a pool in my yard so we can swim whenever we want to, I say. It takes a lot of work, he replies. You mean caring for it? Yeah, Papa goes down to the creek all summer to work on ours. You need a strong dam. To Ben, a pool is a hole in the creek. I'm actually thinking of a pool like the one where you took swim lessons. You know, the square kind that's made of concrete. Oh, the twins have a pool like that, but I have to wear a life jacket. He's mentioned a life jacket twice today, and I ask him, is a life jacket something you want? No, I wouldn't use it. I might get stuck inside of it. That's interesting, I say. Well, I can't get a pool anyway, but I sure wish I could. Maybe I'll get a hot tub instead. I turn the conversation to our upcoming birthdays. Ben and I were born just 2 days and half a century apart. And birthdays are something we like to discuss. In order to celebrate together this year, my daughter volunteered to isolate her family during August. Your mom is making me cupcakes, I say, chocolate with cream cheese frosting. Auntie Maddie's making me vanilla with strawberry frosting and real berries inside. And pink sugar sprinkles, he adds, but I'm not sure I'll get the sprinkles. We'll have to wait and see, I said. Of course, I've already bought them. Hey, maybe when I blow out my candles, I'll wish for that hot tub. Don't tell me your wish, Nan, or it won't come true. Right. It is I who warned him of this years ago, and he's taken it to heart. I already have my wish, but I can't tell anyone because I really need it to come true. You already have it? My daughter mentioned a remote control car, but I'm curious to know what he wants so badly. He's planned the wish a week in advance. I guess I could tell you, Nan, but you'd have to forget right away. Do you promise to forget? I have mixed feelings because of course I'm not going to forget, and therefore I can't promise. But I want to make sure we buy him what he's wishing for, so I say, I'll probably forget. He appears to weigh his decision as we pass the Little River Inn, our favorite pre-COVID pancake spot. All at once he perks up and the wish tumbles out. I'm going to wish for the environment, that it's clean and that people don't pollute it with trash anymore. And then I'm going to wish that all the animals are safe and that every animal that has gone extinct comes back to life. Humbled, I choose my words carefully. That is a kind and generous wish, Ben. It's a wish you can be proud of. Do you think it's 2 wishes, he asks? No, I think they go together. I mean, if the earth is clean, the animals will be safer. Good. You know, your wish makes my wish for a hot tub seem a little bit silly. No, it's a good wish, Nan. Maybe you could share the water with some animals. You mean let them use my hot tub? Yeah, frogs and otters and some birds. They might like it. I'll definitely think about that. I adore every moment with this kid. We turn inland from the coast, following the river past the big green bridge and into the redwood forest. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Next is Audrey Joy Wells, a poetry piece entitled Skeleton in Place on Hair, that's H-A-R-E, hair. You're
Hello,
up.
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, this is Skeleton in Place on Hare Creek Beach. No pyre for me or burial at sea. I want to leave my poorest bones behind, buried, then uncovered in many moons beneath this collapsed cliff, still sitting on the remains of my dented aluminum beach chair. Bits of abalone shell by my right hip bone. The cloth pocket that hid them vanished. Bones, bits, and beach chair all waiting, hoping to live in a local museum, displayed as found. Evidence, detritus, decaying in long time, taking the slow road to dust. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle Blackwell, now a fiction piece, Color of Patriotism.
Thank you very much. So this is a fiction piece, and I'm actually reading a trailer version of it because it's too long to read the whole thing. So I won't give you the whole thing, but hopefully I'll give you a flavor of it. The Color of Patriotism. Annie Lau sits at the conference table, half listening to the ongoing discussion about financing the war on terrorism. The nationwide sales tax is not meeting expectations. Her thoughts float to more pressing issues, but self-preservation keeps one ear on the conversation. The chief enters mid-meeting and rails on and on about revenue. Consumer spending has slowed and he is in an uproar. Annie says nothing. Her boss will calm the chief. When he leaves, the real work will begin. Until then, she feels safe. A few moments of safety are all she can hope for these days. David stands by the table and looks at his watch. I have plans tonight. Go home. We meet here tomorrow at 6 a.m. I want ideas from each of you, and I want them ready for his desk by noon. Stephen, David's embedded spy, stands with his arms crossed and a self-gratified sneer on his face. Annie overhears his audible whisper to David, Kate wore that same suit 3 times this month. Her coworker, Mara, says, Kate, where did you get those new shoes? I've been looking for a pair just like them. Annie looks at the shoes. They are shiny and might pass for new to David. Stephen will guess it's a sham. Kate quickly begins a dissertation on her weekend search for shoes. Annie watches David closely as he gives Stephen a sour look and leaves the room. The women exchange glances of relief. On the way to the barter meeting at QV, Annie checks her rearview mirror a dozen times. Stephen is probably at Marcella's drinking a 200 bottle of wine right now. He isn't following me, she thinks. The salon. She circles the salon twice and checks out the cars. Seeing nothing unusual, she pulls into a parking spot close to the doors. The next day, David pulls the room for ideas to increase consumer spending while Stephen stands ready to fill the whiteboard. The brainstorming session isn't in the groove. Annie considers offering her hairbrained idea. As she is mulling it over, David surprises her. Annie, what's your idea? She blurts it out and her peers look at her oddly. Stephen is ready to pounce. David says, I like it. It smacks of patriotism. We have to be careful. We don't want to mix spending with honoring dead warriors, but I think we can pull it off. A few hours later, Stephen startles Annie in her cube, a folder in his hand. It's the first draft. Look it over. There isn't much time. Me? Your name's on it. Be ready to present it to the chief at noon. Stephen walks away. Annie's stomach turns a somersault and her face burned. She opens the folder to mask her fear. Breaking news. David Shea, the director of the Consumer Spending Bureau, announced a new program today to reward consumers. Consumers are keeping this country alive, commented Shea. It is important to recognize that patriotism and spending go hand in hand. The new program will reward households with colored window decals if they can maintain an income-to-debt ratio that supports our country. A government official says each household will receive a Patriot spending report with guidelines for increasing consumption. In a related move, the government's top economists sent a letter to all financial institutions encouraging them to extend credit limits for consumers. A few weeks before Christmas, Annie receives the first quarterly report on the Color of Patriotism program. It's a success, and Stephen leaves her alone. Her neighbor put up a new gold decal. The program is going gangbusters. Everyone wants to be a W Patriot. There's a barter meeting tonight. She plans to skip. Reports of black market decals concern Annie. She overheard the ladies talking about it the last meeting she attended. Maybe that's why I don't go anymore. I'm not on the same page, she thinks. Annie feels an inkling of remorse, but moves her thoughts to the program expansion she just released. They're offering pins and tie tacks for sale in yellow, silver, and gold. License plate frames, cell phone covers, and bumper stickers are currently in design. The chief is ecstatic. There are rumors he is using the revenue to plan another invasion. The next morning, Annie pulls into the garage and notices a lot of empty spaces. A new security guard with dark glasses sits at reception, causing the hair on her nape to tingle. In her office, Annie sees an email from David Shea. It has come to my attention that several members of my staff have been participating in an illegal barter program. Well, this is not treason yet. It is treasonous in nature. Our country's national security is dependent on our spending. I am appalled that in this very department, people have not been spending to the max of their credit limits. Internal Affairs will be conducting a full investigation of every staff member. Meanwhile, the following people have been fired as of today. Stephen pops his head into our office. We raided QV last night.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
So I'm next up. This is also a cut down version of the actual story, the Wedgwood Bowl. At the time Josiah and Sarah bought the China set, Wedgwood remained an English standard. Then it merged with Waterford in Ireland, was purchased by an American conglomerate, and ended for the time being as a Finnish corporation. About 10 years into the bowl's life, at the time it became a Finnish product, it cracked. But Josiah and Sarah continued its useful life. Recently, although not completely sure, he thought the damage had grown. As he picked up the bowl, he felt one side of the crack move up and the other down. Well, love, he said to the memory of his wife, I don't think this old servant would hold soup anymore. Being both deaf and dead, she did not reply. He selected the next bowl on the shelf and ate. He carried the cracked bowl to his garden, which he loved, and where he wished his ashes to be buried in the beautiful black loam, ready to nourish a flower. Of course, he knew his children would sell the place rather than leave the Bay Area. But still, this house, this garden, had given him more peace and happiness than anywhere on earth. Every night, he set out his trail camera to capture video of gray foxes, raccoons, striped skunks, or opossums. Once, while reviewing the night's video, he jumped out of his chair and cried, "Holy shit!" when he saw a mountain lion strolling down his driveway. Even in those early days of heart trouble, he had had to rest on the couch after that 5 seconds of excitement. Climbing to his bench to rest, he held the bowl in his lap and recalled other animals, a long-tailed weasel, voles and moles, that brought him joy. Birds also entertained him all year round. Anna's hummingbirds fought over their territory as he bent to his work. In spring, Alan's and Rufus hummers joined the fray. Ospreys first called in mid-March and left their young in September. Juveniles followed their parents to southern climes 2 weeks later using unknown built-in GPS. Once, while kneeling to weed under a St. John's wort bush, he heard the distinctive song of the elusive wrentit and raised up to see it on a branch above his head. Now, sitting motionless on his bench, he wondered what had the waving shadows of dawning unconsciousness, when had the waving shadows of dawning unconsciousness first cast their print upon his mind. He laughed. Silly man, you can't remember. A recollection wandered into his head that 10 years after the garden matured, he planted the corkscrew willow circle below the bench. By braiding and tying twigs together, he fashioned a dome. He cut twigs from the parent willow, wove them to form a door, and intertwined living shoots to hide the dead wood. Cutting 4-pane windows proved tricky. Inside, he laid out logs for a fire and fashioned a mantel. Outside, he made a path bordered by red nemesia and white alyssum. His imaginary grandchildren, the only ones he had, sometimes visited his dome home. Now he sat on the bench, surveying the work of 15 years of retirement, and smiled at the splendid colors. He had no energy to weed or prune or even water plants. He wondered how many times his beloved had used the bowl. In retrospect, time is foreshortened. Short-term memory shot, old actions crowded his thoughts uninvited, especially at night. He knew his remaining days had whittled down to a precious few, so he absolved himself of his youthful misdeeds. Sunlight broke through the coastal fog, as once again the Pacific and Juan de Fuca plates buckled under North American plate, releasing gargantuan energy, causing a major earthquake. Josiah and the garden bench shook. Blood burst through his flimsy aorta. The Wedgwood bowl slipped from his bluish hand and settled in the soil in 2 pieces. So, Doug, I can't hear you.
I didn't know I was up. Am I
Oh,
next?
Doug, you're next.
Okay.
With toxoplasma, yes.
Okay. So I'm starting my alarm or my timer for 5 minutes, since that's how much we're given, right? Okay. So the title is Cordyceps meets T. gondii. And if you read the whole story, you'll be able to understand what it is. I'm going to read the first 5 minutes worth. And if my voice is not as needed, let me know, Donald, okay? Okay. Twin spirals of dust trailed the Range Rover bouncing along a jungle road in the Petén highlands of Guatemala. Professor Randy Celebra's satellite phone buzzed, and he stopped on the road to read a text from his secretary, Ava. You're crazy. News of 27 decapitated in Petén by drug gang Los Zetas. He wasted little time speeding away from trouble toward his final chance to gather proof that he would clinch his tenure. He mulled agreements he'd read. No, come on. He mulled arguments he'd read on the internet in last night's camp on why T. gondii, his specialty, could never integrate with the cordyceps fungus, much less take over a person's brain like the ants in Professor Margaret Stacy's mycological studies. Margaret Stacy's itinerary for this trip didn't come cheaply. She'd be in her camp at the end of the road tonight. A failed attempt in Brazil forced him to delay his book's media blitz for 2 months. Now it would start when he returned to Texas Tech in 4 days. The satellite phone alerted him to another text from Ava. Bad boy of science, Professor Randy Celebra, book leaked. Search it for more. He didn't bother. He'd leaked it himself. At the campsite surrounded by a thorny enclosure, an uproar of jungle birds and monkeys greeted him. Dust and living things floated in the air mixed with the complex smells of aging humus. He put a hand to the pistol on his belt, then stretched and rolled his shoulders. Another Range Rover and tent filled with the opposite camp. Howler monkeys barked louder when a tall man with gray hair ducked from the tent and adjusted his holster. Hi, Gene Stacy. Call me Stacy. Celebra introduced himself, and both turned at the sound of tent flaps and footsteps. He recognized the woman with her hand extended. Margaret Stacy. A sunbeam highlighted more surrounding gloom. You'll have just enough time to set up before daylight's gone. Celebra worried over the delay in collecting her minuscule tissue. Come on. Collecting her muscle tissue flooded with dopamine and entangled by fungus and parasite markers. That worry fueled familiar tingle on the sole of his left foot. Some small parasite had made its home there years ago, and he guessed that stress upset the freeloader, forcing it to a new location just under his skin. In the morning, Celebra ate breakfast on the tailgate. Stacy came out of his tent, nose twitching. Coffee? Celebra filled a cup. Will Margaret want one? She left at dawn. From the paper she published, I thought you were a team. Why didn't you go with her? We were a team. She's changed over the years. The suicide attempts? Stacy blinked twice. You read about them? I heard they happened in Brazil on the trail of cordyceps and huge ants. She worried me then and continues to scare me. He shook his head. How big are the ants she's studying? Celebra asked. She found 3-inch ants in a gorge about 2 hours from here. Bullet ants. Paparenia clevata. After breakfast, Stacy went back to his tent and Celebra read the stream of posts by scientists attempting to discredit him. He didn't comment. Come on. Tacking along jungle paths, they left behind troops of howler monkeys to encounter others. Oh, saved by the bell. Luckily, I should have read this beforehand, don't you think, Donald?
Do, yes, yes. And also time yourself and edit things and all those good things. And thank you, Doug.
Okay.
Next is Karen Lewis reading a poetry piece called Spinning in Love.
Hey, thanks for the trip to Guatemala, Doug.
Oh, you bet.
Spinning in love. You are sand. You hold me now in orbit, step after step, between horizons of then and now, today and tomorrow. Low tide traces lunar iridescence with crystalline salt shadows. Our shadows crisscrossed with fire-ravaged driftwood. Our blue planet is forever spinning. In balance and calamity, with kelp-torn heart muscle and dreams. Your vortex of geology holds me. You are sky, raven chatter and gull scream, cumulonimbus and thunder. A solitary eagle feather floats free in winter rain where I might dissolve, except for invisible gift breath of effervescent oxygen. You are my love, a surging winter sea, eyes on fire with this green morning, scribing a new decade's abyss. The fortune teller has cast infinity here, shattered agate, sandstone, serpentine, carapace, and shell, taunting us to find shelter inside a sacred spiral of what remains.
Thank you, Karen. Next is, I'm going to mangle both your names, but here we go. Eileen Gleisner, a fiction piece called Ellie's Memories.
You didn't mangle it. You did just fine. Thank you. So I've done a little editing, but I'm still only about a third of the way through. You get to read the surprising ending in the book. Ellie's Memories. Who are these people? Ellie asked Gwen. Her granddaughter slipped a hand under Ellie's elbow and whispered something into her ear, but the words were blurred by a faint buzzing in her head. Ellie tried to focus on too many smiling faces planted atop flowered pastel dresses and wide-shouldered suits. Blinded by a noon sun reflecting off peach plastic-covered picnic tables, Ellie wished someone had remembered her trifocal dark glasses. She blinked constantly to stop the tears from rippling down her cheeks. Someone had also forgotten her hanky. "What are we doing here?" she asked no one in particular. Gwen's hand tightened on her elbow and guided her away from a clot of people flowing towards them. "Let's walk to the ocean," Gwen said. "These people all seem to be Julia's friends anyway." Gwen led her to the edge of the earth, where it plunged down a cliff to a rocky shoreline. A fresh, chilly offshore wind made her lose her breath for a second. Fog curtained a full view of the horizon. "Well, where are we?" she asked. "Where are my slippers?" "We're at Trinidad State Park, Grams, and your slippers are at home." Ellie pointed. "What ocean?" "Oh, Grams," Gwen sounded sad. "The Northern Pacific. Don't you remember? You were the one who told me that every seventh wave was a big one, and we sat and counted them every time you took care of me when we lived in Eureka." Ellie glimpsed a glimmer of a memory that was hurried away by another gust of wind. The rhythmic crashing of waves past her ears made her shiver and tumbled her straw hat behind her. Racing to catch it, Gwen returned it as Ellie shivered again. "Oh dear, don't you catch a cold," Gwen ordered. "Julia won't let me take you out if you get sick. Honestly, Grams, that woman is beginning to annoy me. Of all places to have a wedding at this time of the year, she just couldn't wait till summer." Ellie didn't understand why she would be at this Julia's wedding. She allowed Gwen to pull her back to the wandering flower people. Feeling awkward among so many, Ellie tried to smile. What made her clap her hands in delight was seeing the spring wind provoking all the green napkins into spiraling flight. She chuckled to herself when they clustered at the feet of a stand of fir trees beneath silent ravens clinging onto lofty perches. What are they watching us for, she wondered. Someone handed her a plastic glass of orange slush that was too full. It spilled and made her hand sticky. A rose petal floated to the top, she thought. "I hope I don't get that thing caught in my throat. Would anyone notice if she scooped it out?" She wrinkled her nose at the first sip. This juice burned her tongue. She did not like it. "Here, Mother, let me get you more punch," the barrel-chested man offered. "I'm fine, dear," she said automatically, wondering which one of her three sons this was. They were all built like her Arthur, who was just as handsome as any of— "We're going to have a toast," a woman with a frilly collared dress announced. Toast, Ellie thought. Why would we all be eating toast? Here, a fuller cup was placed in her right palm, which needed her other hand to hold it. "Oh, let's get closer, Grams," Gwen said. Warmth pressed against her shoulder blades and nudged her toward the edge of a circle of people who opened a space for her. Looking toward the familiar voice, she thought, "Oh, Gwen looks so sweet in her pale beige dress with those tiny rosebuds in her hair. I remember when my hair was that dark and shiny, and when Arthur used to brush it for me just before bed when the children were all asleep." Ellie reached to touch the tiny buds, then stopped to stare at the thick, dark veins on her pale hand. Fine tremors made her jeweled wedding ring sparkle. The shining stones invited another memory of Arthur fumbling the ring onto her naked finger on their 15th anniversary. "Oh, I wanted to be on your hand from the beginning," he had said. "I wanted everyone to know that you're mine forever." Oh, now I always knew I was. She had looked into his deep brown eyes and saw his one eyebrow tilted down like it did whenever he concentrated or had something important to say that was hard for him. She had told him, "Arthur dear, I've had your grandmother's gold band and the set of your family's Fostoria stemware. None of it was from me, Arthur had said, lifting his eyes to meet hers. She felt as if he were looking into her heart. I've always wanted to give you something special from me. Her body quivered with the memory of the many ways he had given her everything she had ever dreamed. She felt lost in his stare, and you have to drink a little punch now, Grams, Gwen whispered in her ear. It's a toast to Ken and Julia. There is more, and a surprise. Thank you.
You're muted, Don.
I'm muted. Yes, well, old age, you know. Next is Fran Swartz with a memoir piece. This is what matters.
Thanks, Don. This takes place in Los Angeles on a particular day, Wednesday, April 29th, 1992, and I'm reading an excerpt. A few minutes later, our senior VP's voice came over the intercom. This is John Skipper with an emergency announcement from Disney management. All employees must leave the building immediately. Please proceed to your homes. The Los Angeles Police Department has ordered all businesses to close early because of civil unrest. In an instant, Tanya was at my desk, worry lines creasing her forehead. Rodney King, for sure. A colleague had passed the word about the verdict earlier that morning. We'd been stunned, disbelieving. How could anyone who'd seen the video vote to acquit? Tanya returned to her cubicle as I began putting papers in the file folders. She reappeared with her briefcase, coat slung over her shoulder. Forget the papers. You have a long drive and the freeway will be jammed. Go home now. She stood her ground until I collected my stuff and we hurried out of our empty suite. The spacious lobby of the Disney Channel building teemed with employees racing for the elevators to the parking garage. My heart pounded, a sense of urgency flooded me. In the garage, I waited in an interminable line to exit, then made a quick decision. Avoid the freeway, take surface streets. The nightmare of being trapped on the freeway alarmed me. It was unlikely I'd encounter any violence driving from Burbank over the Sepulveda Pass to the west side, but I wasn't sure. The radio crackled an evolving newscast, fires breaking out in South Central, but also in Midtown LA. I wondered about Roger and his commute home from Glendale, shorter than mine, but still many miles. Neither of us had cell phones. I had no way to reach him. As I drove west on Riverside Drive, I watched the bumper-to-bumper traffic on the adjacent freeway. Riverside was crowded, but at least we were moving. Other drivers pressed cell phones to their ears. Some honked futilely. One guy looked like he was about to jump the sidewalk, thinking to pass the car in front of him. Madness. I switched to a music station and sang to myself. Music calmed me, and this situation required self-control. I wouldn't get home any faster if I rear-ended someone or ran a red light. I glanced at my watch. I'd been on the road half an hour and barely made it to North Hollywood. At this rate, a drive that normally took an hour might take 4. I thought back to August 1965, when the Watts riots erupted on our 4th wedding anniversary. We had reservations for a fancy dinner and instead holed up at home, glued to the TV, anxious about Roger's office. He and his dad had started an importing company 2 years earlier and recently moved to bigger quarters in Midtown LA. Their large warehouse, stacked with merchandise, could be a prime target for looters. Now, an SUV tried to merge in front of me, but I closed the gap, jerk. let him wait like everyone else. I was edgy, not inclined to be courteous. I switched the radio back to the newscast and learned of new violence breaking out. Far to the north and west, I saw a pillar of smoke rising. Did I know anyone there? Thank God my friend Gladys had died in 1991, the previous year. She lived in Compton, next door to Watts, and survived the devastation of 65. After her retirement from hospital nursing, she had taken in her infant great-nephew, a drug baby born at the height of the crack epidemic in South Central LA. Now Brandon was 8, a Black kid living with his recovering addict mom in a working class neighborhood in Long Beach, miles from LA, but there could be rioting there too. Brandon and I were buddies. I visited him monthly and we enjoyed the kind of stuff you do with a grandchild. I was planning to take him to the Disney Company picnic, a child's wonderland of food, fun, and activities. Was he safe? Had school closed early? Was his mom home or trapped in traffic like me? Stuck at a red light, I flexed my numb right foot and shifted in my seat, letting my chin sag and slowly rotating my head. My neck ached. I'd been holding my breath without knowing it and made myself breathe deeply. When I hit Sepulveda Pass, I felt palpable relief halfway home. Traffic on the 405 freeway adjacent to Sepulveda looked frozen, a snaking parking lot. I was grateful to be moving, even 5 miles an hour. So much history.
Thank you, Fran. Next is Elizabeth Vrenius, a poetry piece called Truth Decides to Deconstruct.
Truth decides to deconstruct. First, the T's fall, clattering, clattering, clackety-clack down the walls with the K's, tucka, 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 retreats with a rhythm, a beat and a schism on the skeletal frame with their heads. Our rumpety furniture filled with F's and D's and X's and Q's thrown down the chute, swoop and bounce after the T's and K's. Smoky ascent of the U's and the TH's spirals through the crevice of the moon. Wither the walls. Interesting word, wither. Thrown out of this building with the rest. No windows to throw open to escape the inner life's fate, which has no plaster and rhymes a disaster. No frame of reference, no rooms, no dooms or doors, no more to enter or exit the poem, wires looping and sparking, floors collapsing, one stanza after another, dropping slow-mo, compressing, falling into itself. Dust, musty and husky, obscures the bare structure of what is left, now only a mound where we kneel in the dirt, plant nasturtiums, erect statues to long-lipped strangers, and cover the past with vines. Thank you.
I'm muted. There we go. Elizabeth. Ginny Roby, fiction piece, Bone Dry is next.
This is from a novel I've been working on for a long time. April, and it's just 3 pages. April 14th, 1935. It's hard to remember a day since we moved here to Dalhart, Texas. The sun up hasn't arrived, dull as Papa's pocket watch through a fog of dust. But today, April 14th, my sister Gracie's 6th birthday, dawns clear as glass and windless, the prettiest day any of us can remember. The landscape may look like pictures I've seen of the Great War's battlefields, but the air is clean and sweet. None of us can stop grinning. I pull the sheets from the windows and off the beds and add them to the pile of linens on the porch to be laundered, while Mama washes the grime off the dishes. Gracie sweeps and I do the wash. Gracie likes working the wringer, so I stand by to keep the sheets from folding over on themselves on the porch. I carry them, the pillowcases, the dish towels, to the clothesline to dry in the lovely warm breeze. With most of the chores done, we gather around the table to watch Gracie open her presents. There's a new pair of used shoes and a new school dress Mama made from one of mine. She added a bit of lace curtain at the collar and as trim on the sleeves. Papa gives her a nickel for candy next trip to town. I give her a pink ribbon for her hair. My brother always slips out and returns with a package wrapped in newspaper. When Gracie opens it, it's a hand-woven rope halter for Honey, her calf. Drops out and falls to the floor. She hugs her brother, which makes him blush. When she outgrows that one, Owie says, I'll make her another. After lunch, Mama, Papa, and the baby will drive to the cemetery for the funeral of a neighbor who died of dust pneumonia. Owie's going to another terrible bloody rabbit roundup because we need the meat. Gracie and I will stay home. Gracie because she shouldn't have to see someone buried on her birthday. And I don't have to go because she can't stay alone. We haven't left the farm unattended since two hobos tried to steal our food. Gracie and I stand on the porch and wave goodbye to our parents. The chain attached to the bumper to ground the car drags and kicks up a rooster tail of dust that we can see rising above the road long after we've lost sight of the car. Honey, wearing her new halter, romps in the yard. She's playing with a tumbleweed. She either butts it or kicks it to make it roll, then jumps in front of it and leaps side to side like a game of tag. When it quits rolling, she tosses it with her nose and starts all over again. Gracie's beside me on the porch step, watching Honey and laughing. We both look up when a small flock of screeching birds flies overhead. They should be flying north. I cup my hands around my mouth and shout, "You're going the wrong direction." Gracie giggles. Another flock, larger and noisier, races by. Chill bumps rise on my arms. The front of our house faces south. I walk to the side of the porch and look north, the directions most dust storms come from. The sky is clear and blue as far as I can see. I glance at her and smile. Let's get back to work. We leave Honey trying to entice a chicken to play and go inside to gather clothes that need washing. I heap more water on the stove and scrape lye into it, wash and rinse, then feed them through the wringer before letting Gracie turn the handle. Oh, he could have stayed right here and shot a rabbit, Gracie says. I look where she's pointing. Rabbits, dozen of them.
Lost my connection just now. I anyway.
You're not muted.
What happened? I don't know.
I look where she's pointing. Rabbits, dozens of them, race across their yard.
Get it back.
So many they frighten Honey. She runs up the porch steps and would have bolted right through the screen door if it hadn't been propped open so I could carry more hot water to the wash tub. We laugh, but I walk to the side of the porch and look north again, still lovely and clear. I pile damp clothes in the basket and carry it out in a line that stretches from the east side of the outhouse to the shed. The sheets are dry and smell wonderful. I take them down, fold them, and call Gracie to carry them into the house. Birds and now swarms of insects flow overhead. More rabbits race in the same direction. I feel a pit grow in my stomach. Nona? Gracie's voice is so small, I think it's a trick of my mind. I turn. She's standing in the yard looking up at the windmill. Its blades glow in an eerie blue light, and beyond it, along the single row of barbed wire showing above the dunes, every spike glows. I run to the side of the house. A black duster, wider and higher than anything I have ever seen, spans the horizon as far as I can see in either direction. The cloud rises thousands of feet, and it rolls like a tornado on its side. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mike Wynn with a fiction piece, Birthday in Vienna.
Thank you, Donald. Hello, everyone. I'll read, this is by Annika's second glass of Morlon, a little birthday treat to herself, accompanied by a freshly made bruschetta. The outside tables of the cafe had filled. Hip young African couples chatted at the nearest table. Some older tourists, Danes, or maybe Swedes, she thought, enjoyed themselves across the courtyard. She envied their easy, eclectic demeanor. It reminded her of the easy exchange she once had with William. After the drunken guffaws of those long days in Croatia, the soft sounds around her were sublime. Gentle kisses on the cheek were exchanged at every table. Such intimate gestures, nothing creepy. Talking over draughts of beer and cups of dark espresso, probably fortified with schnapps, the other patrons made her feel an integral part of something. It settled her anxious nerves and was just what she needed today. No cynical shit, no obnoxious louts, just an engaging group of interesting people, enjoying each other's company. And it didn't hurt to be surrounded by architectural treasure. Taking a sip of wine, this dichotomy struck her hard. William had been okay the first few days in Croatia. He found friends within their travel group, two married guys from California, while touring Split and Hvar. By the time they reached Dubrovnik on the ferry, though, he'd gone into a sullen, insufferable funk, arguing with the captain, complaining about the warm beer, and brandishing a rank body odor, soured by 3 showerless days in Adriatic humidity. He was embarrassing to be around, again. In an act of admittedly childish defiance, Annika had flirted with another tourist, a cocky young guy from Florence, nearly causing a fistfight in a historic restaurant. They barely spoke on the 16-hour Eurail run to Vienna. For most of the ride, as the northbound train rolled along between jagged hills and along steep riverbanks, she stared out the window, contemplating the slow, inexorable erosion of her own marriage. She paid for the wine and bruschetta, complimented the server's cute glasses, left a good tip, and walked down the Brandstadt toward the steeples of St. Stephen's. The soaring cathedral spires, fringed by jagged, dragon-like scales in a verdigris patina, drew Annika forward like a Gothic magnet. She stopped abruptly on the busy sidewalk, standing on a granite curb to look up. Thoughts of home flashed across her mind and the beautiful churches of Montreal. That sentimental spark quickly extinguished. Comparing this site to anything in her beloved Montreal, well, it was unfair. Annika heard herself laugh, an involuntary giggle. The way she'd gotten here to Vienna was almost funny. It wasn't even a city she intended to visit. William had made all the arrangements. Well, at least he got that right. Under autumnal sunshine, the old city center bloomed with Saturday afternoon vivacity. Annika meandered through the throng with her senses completely enhanced by the metamorphic fashions, the cacophony of languages, and the relief of Baroque building facades against the powder blue sky. When she reached the polished brass doors of the Doe & Co. Hotel, she paused to look back over her shoulder. Passing through this door might be a mistake, she thought. The specter threatened to crush the joy from her wanderlust. Striding into the lobby, she waved to the young hotel staffer who had earlier provided her coffee to go. She looked to her right toward the hotel lounge. There was William, alone at the end of the bar, looking straight at the mirror, unwrapped her scarf from the neck, and walked quietly into the lounge. Creeping up behind him, she was close enough to whisper, "Enjoying yourself?" "Whoa," he said, turning on the stool, looking confused. "What are you trying to do?" "Nothing. Just wanted to see if you're enjoying this fine day. It feels special, doesn't it?" Annika asked with a tight smile. She recognized something in his glassy eyes and the slightly sweaty upper lip. "Jesus, you scared me. Yeah, I guess so. Pretty good day." He said it without expression. Looked for you up in the room and you were gone. His body language could not have been more petulant. Oh, William, please, where the fuck have you been? And what's that white stuff under your nose? Thank you.
Mike. Now we have Karen Uphoff reading her poem, Uncovered.
Hi, everybody. Uncovered. In her restless shifting, earth reveals tresses of cliffs combed by wind and rain and sunbake. A piece of north coast, once under, forms a path trod over by many. Here you can amble like a rolling stone in life's upwelling, where gulls break open purse muscles to eat off rainbow plates. Warm sun winks at shatterings of our past. Ancient middens squint in sky's bright scrutiny. Come sit along the ripe edge of water to mourn losses or confess crimes. Let this rugged roiling add your story to exposed pages of bistre, ecru, taupe, strata of shedding stars, layered volumes written in surf steady hand. Incessant gouging holds no escape except honesty for the upturned stone. Uncovered, thoughts must reconcile with the grand existence of things, its waves of giving and taking away. Passing clouds may notice, but not judge your shameless capsized vulnerability. Rocky shores of resistance, no match for these coves of death and renewal. Squalls winnow away at pretense to lay bare your amaranthine heart, as what you let go and what you don't tumbles back into the surf.
Thank you, Karen. Now we have Aura Young reading a memoir piece, Leave Taking.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Great. This is the last few pages of Leave Taking, which is a lot longer than what I'm reading to you. During their long days of frenzied activity, my grandmother Martha descended quietly into mourning. Despite Richard's repeated assurance that they would return as soon as the Nazis were gone, she could not shake the feeling that life as she had known it would never be the same again. While my grandfather busied himself with securing visas and travel documents, he heard about Jews who refused to sell their businesses to non-Jews, being arrested and hustled off to one of the Nazis' new concentration camps. Socialists, communists, homosexuals, and the disabled also landed in those camps. What became of them? Although some were released, nobody seemed to know the fate of the others. My mother spoke of fear and denial among her family, friends. Well-established friends who owned homes, businesses, and investments continued to cling on, too rooted to leave. This is how my mother, their daughter, described the situation. Now the Jewish people congregated together and talked in deep anguish, unable to take action. What did one do about it? And what could anyone do about it? She said that her family's large circle of friends and relatives had built successful enterprises and were highly skilled and educated people. How could they emigrate without official dispensation? Taking money out of Germany was forbidden. What would they live on? Martha witnessed the burning of books in Berlin when she went to nurse her cancer-stricken sister-in-law. She returned with stories of marauding bands of drunken essay hooligans who randomly attacked and beat Jews and vandalized Jewish property. Still, in those days of fascism, they were not afraid. They never suspected that if they stayed, they would likely eventually be arrested and murdered in a concentration camp. With many details still to attend to and a neglected business to keep alive, Richard decided to remain in Heidelberg for a week or two after his wife and daughter departed. In those 2 weeks, he planned to relocate his office into 2 rooms he had selected at the Hotel Schreider to be his temporary home and office. In the meantime, Martha and Susie would hunt for a more permanent place to live in Paris immediately after their arrival. By October the 1st, 1933, 8 months after Hitler had come into power, their preparations were complete. At the Heidelberg Railroad Station, my grandparents and mother concluded the final page of a book spanning hundreds of years. Susie and Martha would enact the opening paragraph of the next volume some hours later upon their arrival in the City of Lights. Their new book would tell the story of transcendent love between my mother, her parents, and brother, of danger, separation, survival, and reunification. They suspected none of this as they hurried towards their train as it sat quietly puffing smoke in the Heidelberg station, the scene of many arrivals and departures throughout the life of the family. Susie led the procession of friends and family. Close behind her, her mother clung to her father's arm. A small coterie of friends trailed alongside a porter with a cart piled high with trunks and suitcases. The train's doors stood open, ready to welcome its passengers. Steam swirled around Susie and her mother as they climbed aboard and arranged their suitcases and hat boxes on the luggage rack above them. In the meantime, Richard supervised the porter who stowed their larger trunks in the luggage van. He returned to find Martha standing at the carriage door. After tipping the porter, he turned to her and took her hand. And I can almost hear him say, "You must stop crying, my dear. You cannot upset yourself like this, or you will make yourself ill. I promise everything will be fine. I'll be with you in less than 2 weeks." Susie called to her friends, "You must join us in Paris." The train gave a lurch and moved forward, causing Martha to sit down abruptly. My grandfather remained on the platform, waving the same white handkerchief he had used to wipe his wife's tears away as the train disappeared from his sight. Richard and Martha were justifiably proud of their beautiful, fashionably dressed daughter. On this historic day, she wore a mid-calf length black coat, white silk stockings, silver-buckled high-heeled shoes, and a fox fur tossed carelessly around her shoulders. Her dark hair, bobbed in this latest style, hugged her face. She drew off her white kid gloves and placed her arm around her mother's shoulder, drawing her close. The arrangements my grandfather had made at the Hotel Schreider, as the center of his business activities, proved satisfactory. His employer, the Pappenheim Tobacco Company in Amsterdam, allowed him to avoid dealing with the German authorities by depositing his salary directly into his French bank account. Between business trips, he tried to return to his family in Paris as often as possible. However, as with all things Jewish in Germany, nothing could be counted to remain stable. In March 1936, late one night, he awoke to the sounds of pebbles being thrown at his hotel windows. His friends, Lily and her mother, stood in the street below, gesturing to him to come down. They had hurried 1 foot from their home miles away to warn him, "The Gestapo came to our house this afternoon looking for you. You must leave immediately." Richard gathered his papers together and at dawn ordered a car and chauffeur to drive him directly to Switzerland. A few days later, he took the train to Paris.
Thank you, Aura. Next is Marilyn Scott, a poem, "The Year of the Metal Rat."
Hi, everyone.
We are in the last weeks of the year of the metal rat, which will soon give way to the year of the metal ox coming up in the next astrological cycle, Chinese astrological cycle. So here we are, the end times of the year of the metal rat. A maze looms up, a myriad of walls blocking every turn. How do we escape? The rat finds his way quickly and with ease. Clever, innovative, he scurries and scritches down narrow alleys, climbs tall walls, swims dark streams for days, near blind, like justice or karma. We see into the shade and shadow of ourselves, the way we live, the choices we make. Rat's tail is long, a balance and antenna, sensing and sending to what lives in the dark. In half-sighted vision, his tail goes to what his mind knows. Catching the drift of the invisible, he divines probabilities. Clever, conniving, cunning, running a fast-paced race, picking out tricks from his rat top hat, magically changing lead into gold. Rat hitches a ride on ox's horns, jumps onto the riverbank's path, well worn, runs helter-skelter as only rat can, wins the race by a sleight of hand. A friend in need is a friend indeed. Rat sent his friends on errant paths. Trust is not something pulled out of a hat. Trust must be earned in the year of the rat. Thus, Father Rat is first in line, while Mama Ox, matriarch sublime, clears the way, picks up the pieces before what's left of the old year ceases. In his wake, Rat leaves shredded scraps, newspaper, letters, photos, and maps, sheddings of the old left behind. Nostalgic ox remembers just to remind. Stashing bits of shiny metal, Rat calculates what to forge. A blade or a bowl, a knife or a spoon, the shelter of home or the edge of doom. No need to travel Rat's well-worn way. Your path is unique with new words to say. Don't listen to others. Make up your own mind. Find your own way, a way that is kind. If we climb every wall, peer over the top, we find there's nothing to make us stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn. I wonder if we're just 3 days from the end of the year of the rat.
Yeah, maybe, indeed. Let's hope it goes safely.
Yes. Next is Sharon Gillian, a memoir, In This Room.
Hello, all. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you.
Okay. In this room, all three of us are in our wheelchairs next to our beds, while one of the nursing home's maintenance guys works on 2 of the beds. One of the side rails fell off of my bed. Not sure what's wrong with the other one. Sonia is by the sliding glass door that doesn't slide. The door leads to an outside porch next to the parking lot, and it's blocked so no one can get out or let air in. All I know about her is that she has an injury or an affliction in her left leg which is swollen and discolored. It must be painful because she curses the CNAs, nursing assistants, who come to change her briefs and fights with the physical therapists, trying to get her on her feet. She's talking at length, giving instructions to someone on the invisible phone her hand curls around. Letitia, a stroke survivor, is calling for help after spilling a fair amount of her cut-up spaghetti lunch on her hospital gown, tray, and bed table. No one had come to help her eat the slippery pasta, so she gamely tried to carry on alone, and the mess was evident. She used the draw sheet from her bed to try to clean up. Now the sheet is piled on top of her plate, and her hospital gown is covered in red sauce. I'm shifting uncomfortably in my chair from being left in it too long. The physical therapist helped me transfer into the wheelchair, but my session is over, so he's not around to help me back into bed with the transfer board. I have to wait until 2 CNAs are available to maneuver me in with the Hoyer lift. I call it my daily carnival ride, when they hoist me up and swing me over the bed. Sonia and Letitia are not the loudest or most disruptive roommates I've had in my 3-month stay, but I'm hoping they'll be the last. At least they don't try to get out of bed despite not being able to walk unaided, and they don't bang on the wall all night for attention. The patient who occupied the bed before Sonia kept getting up to walk home, but the bag attached to the catheter she required was tethered to the bed frame. When she fell trying to get out the sliding door, I had to yell for help because the call light was out of her reach. They are routinely ignored by the CNA. They are routinely ignored until the CNA assigned to that station can be found and freed of her other duties. The staff responds to my raised voice because I use it so rarely, and they know I'm still lucid enough to recognize a real emergency. Patients who scream all night or pound the wall are only checked on sporadically. I'm still mostly bedbound without a right hip joint, but spend a couple of hours during the day in a wheelchair to strengthen my core muscles. I'm working on my physical skills after weeks of being afraid to move around when the massive incision from the explantation of my hip hardware was still tender. At least I'm free of the tubes stuck in the incision and attached to the wound vacuum device. It had an annoying habit of developing an air leak and setting off an alarm to a repair person. Kim, a CNA, has finally noticed Letitia's lunch mess and calls another aide to help clean up while she whisks her off to the shower room. As she rolls Letitia out, Kim nods at me. I'll be back soon to get you settled. As promised, Kim returns with Jeff, and he hooks the loops of the transport sling onto the arm of the lift. Jeff works the controls while Kim guides the bundle that is me over the bed as he lowers the mechanism. When I can feel the mattress, I say, and we have touchdown. Bits of humor keep me from losing my way in this place, but I'm not sure how much more it would take for me to play with my food or give orders to no one on a non-existent phone.
Sharon, are you still in that place?
No, I'm home now. I've been home since June.
Good, good, good. Next, we have Natiosa, a poem called Scatter My Ashes.
Hi. Scatter my ashes. Where would you like your ashes spread, my love? It's my husband who asked the impertinent question. In the unlikely case, he's hesitant now, heaven forbid, that you leave this earth before me. I hold his gaze while I thoughtfully ponder my post-mortem healthcare directive. Would I spend eternity on the cold high plateau of Segovia, where a numbing wind blows, where the eye is drawn over wide treeless plains, and the spirit is nurtured in cloistered tradition, where my ancestral home is anchored by stones, weathered and worn by the touch of time passing? Would I add my name to those carved on the wall where my ancestors rest? The Venantios, Nicasias, the Antonios, Filomenas, Aurelios? Or would I choose instead to be laid to rest at the foot of the Sierra Nevada, where tall swaying pines lead the eye to the sky and arch into nature's cathedrals, where sweet shivering streams kiss my jubilant body, where I pledged allegiance to a different song, and my tongue took on a new cadence? Could I be forever sustained by memories of first loves, first awakenings? I spent an immigrant's ambivalent life with a foot lightly set on two continents, both at home and adrift wherever I am, a citizen of the world and of nowhere. I am today perched on the rim of the earth, an uncompromising coast clad in a capricious shawl of fog studded with sunshine, deceptively soothing, curiously calming. So, scatter my ashes off Casper Cove, but wait for the annual migration. Cast them out strong, let them catch the wind, go out on a wave, and I'll ride to eternity on the back of a whale.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you, Natty. Sue Gibson is next. And I'm sure this is going to be amusing because it's Sue, Memoir, A Wedding in Portugal. I saw.
You don't have to look at me. I'm not on there. Okay. Can I start now? I can't hear you.
Yes, go ahead and start, Sue.
Okay. A wedding in Portugal. It was a sweetly soft spring day, and I sat in a large pink marble tub soaking off layers of jet lag when Lourdes Maria rushed in and bleated, "We have a very large problem." "What problem do we have?" "Pompilio has disappeared." She sat in the side of the tub and wept. "He has disappeared with the wedding money, and now there'll be no wedding." I was in Portugal for the wedding of a couple I had known since they were young and promised that no matter when, I would return for their ceremony. The aforementioned Pompilio was the father of the bride and had disappeared that very morning, taking only his toothbrush and all the money for the wedding reception. Pompilio had promised Angela and Sophia, his two daughters, the most beautiful weddings in Sintra, and now both he and the funds to pay for Angela's wedding were gone. Through the open window, I heard the wailing of Pompilio's wife, Lobelia. She lived 2 doors down and was screeching about her loss. And while her many lady friends and some of those not so friendly, but who loved to witness sorrow, wailed with her. The keening was dreadful and soon was joined by the other ladies who did not want to miss the event. All the ladies in the village of Sintra gathered around to help with the lament and had a wonderful time. Lobelia was consumed with grief and she shrieked, "I am a widow. Pompilio is dead. I know this. He is much too handsome. He has been stolen by a terrible woman. I will kill him. Some thief has stolen the wedding money and they have killed my dear Pompilio. My life is over. The foolish one has run away with some evil woman. I hope he's dead. He deserves death for such an act. All the ladies gathered around hoped that it was another woman because that would be a lot more fun and noise than a death. They could just imagine the scene and the furor when the woman tired of Pompilio, and who wouldn't, and sent him back to Lobelia. She would make him pay for his sins. She would make him crawl. She would step on him like an insect. It would be a grand time. But then a death could be just as entertaining because the ladies could speculate for months on the cause and if a woman was involved. It was a wonderful occasion for the entire village of Sintra. Keep in mind that Sintra conveniently located their hospital right next door to the funeral parlor with a connecting door between them. One could just glide through with the deceased and not waste any time before screaming and wailing. The ladies of the villa thought this was a proper planning. Lourdes Maria said that we must search for Pompilio, and off we went, once up and down the main street and once down the cross streets. And Lourdes Maria said the searching was over, that he was either alive or dead. I figured that covered most possibilities, and that's what we could do to help Jean and Angela, who must be devastated by Pompilio's disappearance and the loss of their wedding funds. When we arrived at Lourdes Maria's home, the bridal couple were there waiting in tears. After much discussion and what seemed to be a gallon of support, it was decided that the wedding should take place anywhere, with no father of the bride and no reception. She had her gown and the priest was ready, so they'd just get married and that would be that. All Angela and Joan wanted was to be married, and that was the most important thing. They would use their honeymoon time and money to look for Pompilio. And who would walk the bride through the village to the little church and give her away? Lourdes Maria's father was drafted and rushed down to Lisbon to buy a new suit. During these discussions, all the ladies who had helped Lobelia, the mother of the bride, keen for her husband, made plans. These good women gathered their aprons and took over the firehouse kitchen and cooked all night. They made great vats of wonderful food, as only the Portuguese can. They made clam and pork stew and shrimp turnovers and huge platters of cabrito and tons of the gooey sweet cakes the Portuguese love. I don't know when tell me when I'm over. I don't know, am I over? Time-wise, I don't know. They sent their husbands to the wineries to buy cases of jug wine. They decorated the social club of Sintra as sort of a place for the guys to hang out and owned by the village with crepe paper and homegrown flowers. It was a work of love, and Angela and Joan were loved by all. I think I'm over 5, aren't I? Am I over 5 minutes?
Well, none of us are timing, so let's say yes.
Am I done?
I think so.
Okay, there, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Sue. Next is Susan Lundgren with a memoir piece, White Powder Blues.
So I'm just reading the first 5 minutes of the story. So 6 professional women in their late 20s and early 30s want to meet interesting, available men for dinner at a local restaurant. Intrigue us by leaving your info at Berkeley Monthly, Box 23775. We sorted through replies together. Some focused exclusively on sex. Those went directly into the garbage bin. Others were filled with misspellings and grammatical mistakes. Those joined the sexual one. Most sounded like thoughtful, intriguing men, a doctor who lived on a sailboat he'd bought impulsively in the San Juan Islands, a high school business teacher, and a tech wizard who taught college computer classes before completing his bachelor's degree. I chose the last one. The cliche of seeing someone across a crowded room, feeling an instant attraction was how it all began. Stephen was tall and good-looking, with brown hair, a full but trim beard, and dark eyes. He carried himself with confidence and ease. I liked that. Looking back, I remember what one of the other women said that night, someone on the board of the Berkeley Psychic Institute. There's something dark there. He's trouble. I didn't listen. The bio he sent mentioned cocaine. Maybe that should have been a warning too, but it was the early 80s. Who hadn't done coke, at least casually? We started with dinner dates, plays, and movies, and sometimes cocaine at his house after. Stephen was in his early 30s, a year older than me, smart, charismatic, and had an easy conversational style, sprinkled with moments of quick humor, the kind of man you could introduce to your friends. At first, we'd cuddle and kiss. Kisses were sweet, leaving me wanting a little more, even though I'd always go home. After a couple of weeks, he made his move. When he started to undress me, I froze, backing away as I rebuttoned my blouse. Is there a reason we can't go forward? I'm not sure, I said. I'd come off a recent breakup and wasn't in a hurry for this step. I want a relationship with you, Stephen said. I'll wait, but you have to tell me when you're ready. I don't want to keep guessing. Or let me know if you've decided I'm not what you're looking for. I agreed. Our nights became cocaine-filled talks into the wee hours of the morning. Eventually, I led him into the bedroom. The first time was mostly kissing and holding, slowly culminating into making love. Years later, I remember the bedroom as one of our best places together. Sessions were intense, heartfelt, and, at the beginning of our relationship, influenced by a drug-induced euphoria. My life fell into two disparate categories: a responsible college counselor by day and a druggie during my free time, especially weekends. This was the second drug period in my life, although I'd never had a serious habit. When going out with someone who used, I took what was offered. Now, coke was always on the glass table in the living room, next to the razor blade for cutting and the rolled dollar bill for snorting. For me, the were subtle. It kept me awake and enhanced my senses. Colors were brighter. Touch was more intense, more intimate. Occasionally, I felt my heart racing a little, especially at the gym, but I didn't feel out of control. I had a watch on Stephen, though. His personality didn't change, but he seemed to consume more. One day he announced, I think I have a problem with cocaine. I was happy he recognized it. We set up an appointment with the drug counselor. The day we were to meet, Stephen bailed. Work's crazy, I can't get away. I went alone. After talking to the therapist, I realized my usage encouraged Stephen to continue. I quit and never used anything again. I didn't miss it. Stephen's consumption, however, increased. One night, something didn't feel right to him. Maybe the coke wasn't pure. Call your dealer, I said, since they'd been using together. I haven't had any reaction, said his supplier. Go to the hospital. By now, Stephen was gasping for air. I drove frantically, terrified I was going to lose him, pausing only briefly at the red light, long enough to see no other cars were coming, then speeding ahead. Barely inside the emergency room, a nurse grabbed him and threw him on a stretcher. Has he been using anything, she asked. I told the truth. I didn't want him to die. It turned out he'd scared himself and was hyperventilating. That was all, although the nurse said he'd scared her too. While my feelings for him deepened, changes in his behavior were subtle but noticeable. Occasional irritability, fatigue, sometimes difficulty focusing. But we were good together most of the time, especially when traveling. Mexico, England, Switzerland, Haiti. He continued working from home as an independent contractor for a firm in Ann Arbor. 8 months after we met, he arrived in New York to present a day-long workshop to a high-level company needing assistance in choosing and installing computer systems. He called me after lunch. How's it going? I asked. Great, he said. Hours later, Stephen called again. He'd returned to an empty conference room with a note on his podium. We don't know what's going on, but you're not making sense. You'd better go home.
Thank you, thank you. Next, we have Windflower reading the poem, Skin of the Earth.
Thank you, Donald. Skin of the earth. The seeds of fear sown when I was young, planted in Sunday sermons by the priest, in Wednesday catechisms by the nuns. They took root in the dark confessional booth, a meshed window between me and forgiveness. Years of rhizomes burrowing into the soil of my spirit, growing, spreading, detouring around obstacles of joy and optimism. There is a thin layer where decaying remains and living organisms each have their own story. a skin to my earth, a place of absolution. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, we have Priscilla Coleman, a memoir, Fossils.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I look out the window of my office at the forest of Northern California as I write in my yellow pad. I see a giant turkey vulture sweep toward the yurt that is our home in Mendocino. Its wings are widespread as it veers off just inches away. There must be something dead on the road that this creature is craving for breakfast. The vulture looks like a prehistoric bird from a time long ago. When I was a little girl, my father took me to the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles. We lived a few blocks from there. He told me about the giant birds and mammals that were buried in the tar. It frightened me, but I was also fascinated. I visualized myself falling into the pits. Prissy, my father said as we walked along the paths far from the edges, for many centuries, the bones of big animals have been preserved in these natural tar pits. You must be careful walking here. I held his hand tightly. I loved those walks with my daddy when I was 8 or 9. I am in my 80s now, but the window I look out of today takes me back to those days. As an only child, I was a dreamer, a pretender. I created a family of my own, a big brother or sister to play or read with. I needed approval from my parents, from my classmates. I ate my vegetables and mothers told their children I was a good girl. I had green-brown eyes they called hazel and mousy-colored, naturally curly hair. I rode my tricycle on the cement sidewalk in front of our apartment house. Mother didn't allow a two-wheeler. She was afraid to drive a car. Yet she traveled by ship from New York to California and played poker at a gambling casino in Gardena. She didn't like me much, but my father was my best friend. I think she was jealous of my relationship with him. He was loving, but not a strong man. He backed away from conflict in our house. He was soft-spoken and kind and well-liked at sportswear shops where he decorated the display windows. He was an artist. I fantasized that he had an affair with the manager of the shops. As the window clouds over with fog creeping from the Pacific Ocean, I see more of my current life and I think about my years living here. I am more comfortable with myself. The fog does not bother me as those tar pits did. Life has risks, but they are worth taking. Our son Todd, now age 60, is coming to visit from the East Coast. He has not seen us for a few years. How will he find us now? Aged in face and body, shorter as vertebrae have compressed. Our ears cannot hear all nuances. I must wear magnifying glasses to read. The dermatologist treats my skin for carcinomas. Erosion is setting in. Todd can see all these signs. What about those he cannot? The brain. We can still tell a good joke, still enjoy cooking and eating a great dinner, still drink a glass or two of Merlot or Chardonnay. We may be fossils, but we function. Our son will have aged too, though not visibly. He is a dean at a Boston college, a vegan with many new wave ideas and philosophies that we don't understand. He looks like his grandfather, my father, Joseph Roberts, née Rosenberg. In the 1930s, when he moved to California, Joe changed his name to avoid discrimination and to obtain employment in the days of prejudice against Jews. Todd will not follow the path his grandpa and I walked in Los Angeles. We now live far from there. But I will tell him that the bones we looked for in the tar are over 35,000 years old. My father bought the Encyclopedia Americana from a man who went door to door selling the volumes. That is how I learned they were thought at first to be bones of horses, cattle, dogs, and camels. Geologist W. Orcutt later recognized these as fossilized prehistoric animal bones preserved in the pools. The remains of mastodon and saber-toothed tigers give us an understanding of the Los Angeles basin during the glacial age. They are reassembled and they tower above humans at 16 to 60 feet. I see my father in my mind's eye. I'm as old as he was when we moved him and my mother from a decaying apartment in LA to Fort Bragg. He liked the small town atmosphere, nodding his head in his stylish chapeau at people he knew or thought he knew. The Duncan Place apartments where I had reserved a place for them had just been completed and were a new and clean environment. The place even had an elevator. Fort Bragg reminded my father of the small towns he had grown up in back east. He died a few years after we moved him, and we scattered his ashes in the ocean. Now an hour has flown by, and I must do the tasks that need to be done before Todd's visit. No, his son Noah is coming too. I will see how he has grown and matured in the few years since I have seen him. I close my yellow pad. The giant vulture flies off with a tasty morsel in his beak, and I have the scenes of my father and the tar pits in my memory forever. Thank you.
Thank you. Back to you, Catherine.
Okay, that should wrap up our program today. Thank you, everyone. I know it was a longer one, but you did very well. I just want to invite you to join us in February. We have one of our very, very favorites. Jody Gehrman is going to be talking to us about suspense. So we'll see you third Sunday in February, 3 o'clock. Thanks. Thank you for all the readers too.
Thank you, Nona.
My pleasure.
Thank you, everybody. Be well, be safe.